Welcome, movie fans. Thanks for joining us for episode 113 of Reading Between the Reels, the premier podcast of ruining franchises. If you're a new listener, we're so glad you found us. If you've been enjoying the show, please like, follow, and subscribe, and review us on iTunes or Spotify. You can also support the show by posting on your socials and joining our Facebook group. I'm Craig Dickinson alongside Justin Eldon. What's up, Justin? How are we doing?
I'm doing pretty well. I want to clarify, we don't ruin the franchises. The third movie in the franchise ruins the franchise.
True. That's true.
We just talk about the ruining of the franchise.
Exactly.
We have nothing to do with ruined franchises.
No, we do talk about them, but we didn't do it. It's not our fault.
Yeah, not our fault.
So, Justin, what you been watching since the last time we talked?
Nothing. Absolutely nothing. If any of you are millennials or younger kids or have younger kids, you'll understand the addiction known as Minecraft. And I've gotten deeply into Minecraft because of my children, and that's all I have done for several weeks and not watched anything except for the movie we're about to talk about. So nothing.
Oh, poor guy.
Yeah.
You're going to need a palate
No, it's
cleanser.
fun. I love it. It's great.
Okay, good.
It's ruining my life.
Nice.
What have you been watching?
Yeah, so one thing I've been watching a lot is a lot of Apple TV Plus. I recently re-upped on that, and I've been catching up on some things. I'd only watched like 2 episodes, I think, of Shrinking, and there's 2 episodes now, and I finished that. I'm all the way. Well, I'm finished as far as the show is current. It's from if you don't know, it's from the creators. Well, at least one of them of. No, 2 of them rather, of Ted Lasso, and it's really good. It's got Jason Segel and Harrison Ford, and it's very, very good. And I watched Silo, caught up on that, which I'm less interested in, but I'm kind of pot committed on that. That's like a dystopian thing with Rebecca Ferguson. And Severance is in the middle of its 2nd season right now, which I think, Justin, you and I have talked about that, and you're asking.
Yeah, I really want to watch that.
Yeah, there was a new episode that dropped, as of this recording, dropped last night, so I need to check that out, but... yeah, that's a really interesting show. As far as movies go, I watched a couple things I hadn't seen in a while. Logan Lucky, which is fantastic and super underrated, and nobody really knows it exists, but it's from Steven Soderbergh, the guy that made the Ocean's trilogy, and it's essentially that, but with guys in West Virginia who, for lack of a better term, are rednecks. That's kind of a derogatory term, but it's really, really good. It's Channing Tatum and Adam Driver are the 2 brothers that are in charge of it, of the heist. Daniel Craig is in there doing a southern accent before Knives Out. Great cast. Just lots of people that you recognize in small parts, but very smart, very clever. So I've enjoyed that quite a bit. Yeah.
Sometimes I wonder with Daniel Craig if the Bond films like cut off his career a little bit, because he's kind of just known as James Bond. But he's got some pretty good acting chops outside of those movies. I mean, he's good in those movies as well, but it's just hard to see him as anything else now.
True. Yeah, it's kind of typecast.
Mm-hmm.
So Justin alluded to what we're talking about with the ruining of the franchise that we didn't do. But Justin, what did ruin the franchise?
So today we're going to talk about X-Men The Last Stand from 2006, which kind of continues us on our journey of pre-MCU Marvel movies. And unfortunately, I mean, the pre-MCU Marvel movies had already kind of started to take a dive, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. But this is where it's now in like full downward spiral, not recovering until it's going to crash and burn, and then eventually rise like a phoenix from the ashes into the MCU. Ooh, Phoenix. See the tie-in there? Because this movie has the Phoenix. I just came up with that right now. Yeah, good job, brain.
So we've kind of already alluded to our overall thoughts on this film. I don't think either of us particularly enjoy this movie, but anything else that you want to mention before we jump into the technical stuff?
Just every time I watch this movie, I hope that I was mistaken. I'm like, maybe it's good. Maybe I was in a bad mood last time I watched it. Or, you come back to a movie after so many years and your life changes and films change and you have a different perspective on things.
Yeah.
And every time I kind of forget the bad and only remember the good. And I'm like, yeah, that's got to be pretty good, right? It's got to be pretty good. And then I just realize more how bad it is. Like I find more things that I dislike about the movie, and it's not even that it's just bad. Like we said at the top of the show, it's just it ruins the franchise. It makes me sad, especially because I feel like after this movie, all the X-Men movies to varying degrees are pretty solid. I like most of them, but this one is just so out of left field. Like it's just way off.
Yeah, it's
right.
it's kind of a mess, and I mean a lot of that's due to like the production and how Bryan Singer was in pre-production and then he left to go do Superman, and so we get 2 mediocre movies instead of 1. And I mean I like Superman Returns, but it didn't.
I did
it
too,
didn't set the world on fire. It didn't do what Warner Bros. Wanted it to do. Hence we get the Man of Steel reboot later on. But I mean it's Brett Ratner who's got. It's interesting. The 2 directors one that started and one that finished this film have not the best reputations in Hollywood right now. But there's a laundry list of people that almost worked on this movie too, like Darren Aronofsky, Joss Whedon, Rob Bowman, Alex Proyas. Even Zack Snyder was approached at one point to direct this film.
That would have been very, very different.
Yeah, and that
in tone.
Well, that's what I think is the most jarring thing for me, is that tonally this movie doesn't quite feel like the first 2 movies. It feels like kind of like it's trying to ape that style and that tone, but doesn't quite get there. It always just felt a little off to me.
Well, yeah, and the first 2 movies do such a great job of setting up all of these characters and giving them like just such like rich backgrounds, or at least alluding to rich backgrounds. And then this one's like, you know what? What if we just killed them instead?
Yeah, I mean the Cyclops death is directly related to the fact that he's in Superman too. So it's like a lot of this stuff is like the behind the scenes stuff is not supposed to bleed through into the movie, but it absolutely does.
But even with the Cyclops death, like, okay, let's say you have to kill him. Sure.
Yeah.
Just at least do it in a respectful way.
Yes. Please.
Yeah, okay.
No. Yeah, I mean it's 57% of Rotten Tomatoes. I think that's fair.
I think that's not fair. It should be lower. That's not fair.
Yeah. Well, see, okay. So yeah, this is why Rotten Tomatoes is dumb, because what is it? What is Man of Steel? It's in the mid-20s. Oh, not Man of Steel. Man of Steel is 50. Man of Steel is 55. Man of Steel is lower than this. That's stupid. Batman v Superman is like 30 points lower than this. I'm sorry.
I feel like all Rotten Tomatoes does is show how popular is it to hate on this movie. Trick.
Yeah.
Because I think this movie, now that it's quite a bit older, a lot of people it's not fun to hate on it anymore. And I shouldn't say it's all bad. Maybe I should try and focus on the good here. But it really, really lets the franchise down.
Yeah.
And luckily, I believe if you get like really into the X-Men timeline with the films, I think Days of Future Past actually erases this movie from the timeline. Yeah, so we're good. We're good. I don't have to be too mad.
No, it fixes a lot of this stuff, so that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
I mean, that's Bryan Singer coming back to do that too, so that's kind of fun. He's like, I'm taking care of the stuff that I didn't like. Yeah, it's gone. So
kind of like J.J. Abrams in Star Wars.
Yeah. That's a whole other topic.
Yep.
Well, let's see if we can find some good, Justin, in cinematography, composition, color, camera work. Were there things that you liked or stood out to you as far as having meaning?
You want me to say nice things?
We're gonna try. Well, at least see what they were trying to do, if you can. Because I have a few things.
Okay, why don't you go first while I try and rephrase these things as nice?
Okay. I'm going to start with the beginning of the film, and there's what I think is a pretty cool scene with young Jean. I like how they kind of set up the backstory for that. We do have some rough, but I think it is technically the first instance of de-aging CGI on Patrick Stewart and Ian McKellen as they go back in time to recruit little Jean. And while they're sitting at the window, or right in front of the window, there's this, I think, really interesting setup. This triangle that you have there, where Charles is on the left, Magneto's in the center, and Jean's on the right. And it's almost like Magneto is kind of the apex of that triangle, since he's up at the top there. And I think what it's kind of showing is how Jean's destiny can go either way. It's kind of hinting toward that. And so I felt like that was a very intentional setup, and especially when you see what happens in that scene where she's like lifting the cars and kind of threatening like what her abilities are. I thought that was kind of a cool setup.
Okay, yeah. That is some positivity.
Yeah.
I just get so distracted in that scene because the de-aging is not great. They just look like they're wearing the rubber masks from Mission Impossible, but before the rubber mask actually turns them into before they swap it out for the actual actor, that's what they
start to pull on it.
Look like.
And
to
again,
me.
I think it's the first instance of that, so I got to give them a little bit of grace, and I appreciate them trying that.
Yeah.
But it doesn't. Okay. They are very, very plastic looking by today's standards.
Also, the timeline is completely screwopoly with when Xavier can and can't walk. Like, we're just gonna ignore everything. That's fine.
Continuity's not a thing in the X-Men universe.
Not a thing. Which I just have to get over that. In terms of cinematography and composition, things like that, I noticed there was a lot of wide shots to kind of like establish, I guess, like the grand scale of things, especially like on the Golden Gate Bridge as Magneto, picks it up and moves it, which I thought was nice. It kind of sets the scale for things. It kind of shows like these are worldwide events. These aren't just like little happenings here and there. But at the same time, after those wide shots, it quickly cuts into like action sequences, and action sequences, I feel like are pretty well choreographed if we're trying to say positive things. But then the editing is so fast paced in those action sequences that you almost like underappreciate the choreography because you can't see what's going on.
Yeah.
Like you can't really appreciate it.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, like, if you think about some of the movies you even watched in this series, like the Blade movies, where they'll just pull back and let you see the fight. Even Elektra had more of that. It kind of is not as much as Blade, of course, but like a John Wick, where you're going to get to see the thing unfold. This is quick cut, hiding a lot of things.
Yeah. Just not quite as like immersive with it. Jean Grey as well. I don't know why movies can't get like the Phoenix Force right, because they tried to do it again in what's that really bad X-Men movie? That's also the third movie, and it's also really bad.
Dark Phoenix, yeah.
Phoenix, yeah.
It's Simon Kinberg who wrote both of those films and directed the second one. Don't let that guy do Dark Phoenix ever again, please.
Yeah, stop it, man.
He's had two tries. Yeah.
So I mean, Dark Phoenix is like this, unlimited cosmic power that. Before the episode, I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna like nail down what are Phoenix's in the comics like actual powers, because I'm like I don't fully know, and I don't fully know because I don't think anyone fully knows. If you look at the list of her powers, it's basically everything, like time travel. She can like transmute matter at a subatomic level, so you can turn like wood into gold. You can teleport to any realm or dimension. You can disintegrate. Let's see, it can consume and remove a near infinite amount of molecules per second at any point. Like, so she can just do anything. But in here, you don't see a lot of that. You see her brooding and mad. And there could have been some really cool shots there. There could have been some cool cinematography. There could have been a lot of like flame and fire powers, and it could have looked so cool. And they hinted at that at the end of, I think, like X-Men 2, after she dies, like it flies over the Alkali Lake and you see like the outline of the Phoenix in the Alkali Lake, and you're like, oh yeah. And then they just like let you down there.
Yeah.
So I feel like that was a missed opportunity for some amazing cinematography. And it's just her brooding and looking mad all the time.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, I hear what you're saying, and that was one thing I was going to ask about later was, how you, because they do have a different origin for the Phoenix in this one. Like, it is not a cosmic entity; it's just like essentially a alternate personality of Jean's, and so I understand you got to pare things down for movies. Like you don't want to get into the entire background. They haven't really like introduced anything otherworldly or cosmic in this franchise, so I understand why they had to change that, but
really the only power they give her is like, I can disassemble people with my mind.
Yeah,
Like,
that pretty much.
That's about it.
Yeah, move stuff and break people.
Yep.
There was a couple other shots, though, that I wanted to point out, just that I appreciated. You mentioned Alkali Lake. We talked about Scott Summers, Cyclops dying. His route to Alkali Lake while he's riding there, where they show him bird's eye view, I thought was... bird's eye view is typically meant, just straight up and down. Extreme high angle is meant to be kind of disconcerting, to kind of put you not at ease, make you know something bad's about to happen, and I thought that was a pretty effective use of that.
I'm sorry, in which scene?
When Scott's riding the motorcycle out to Alkali Lake to go look,
I see.
Look for Jean or mourn Jean or what have you. So I thought that was pretty great. When he gets there, there's shaky cam as the Phoenix rises from the lake, which shaky cam, when it's used properly, that's what I thought it was here, was pretty effective.
Yeah.
And then just kind of the last thing I had was at the end where they it's Logan, Storm, and the Beast kind of come up with the plan and how they're going to disarm Magneto. Though they don't have to say anything because they just do close-ups on each of their faces and then on the cure needles, just a hint, which I thought was a good job. In a movie that has it's kind of over the top and doesn't do a lot of things with subtlety well, I thought that was a good way to just show us rather than tell us what they're thinking. So there are a few things that are pretty decent.
Okay, you're coming at this much more positive than I am, and I just sound like a negative, angry person. So, okay, got a good one. I got a good one.
Okay.
In terms of like you mentioned like disorienting shots, but maybe like intentionally disorienting. When Wolverine is in the woods, when he's like heading towards Magneto's camp, there's that scene he climbs up the tree, right, and then he does like a backflip off the tree.
Yeah,
which is a little over the top. But there's a shot that kind of like tracks him down. It looks pretty nice. It looks like, oh man, that takes some skill. Well done, Wolverine.
Okay. Sure.
I'm scratching the bottom of the barrel here. Like,
that's fine. Let's move on to sound then. Any effects or music stuff or vocal sounds that you liked or found meaning in?
Stop setting me up for saying positive things, Craig.
I mean, I'm going to start it off because, I mean, vocal sounds. You have Arlie Ermy explaining the plastic mandate thing, which, like, he's not in it. I missed the fact that I don't get to see him, but it's kind of fun that's the guy ordering him to turn in your metal guns, get a plastic gun.
I did think that was weird that was it actually him or was it just a...
That's fully him.
Okay, I didn't know if it was someone just imitating his voice.
Yeah. Well, at least he's credited as it, yeah.
Okay, so it being, the X-Men franchise, we got the old favorites, right? We have Wolverine's claws coming out. Mm-hmm. Like, nobody dislikes that sound. That's an amazing sound. No. We got, like, every time Magneto is moving and bended metal, that's just awesome.
Yeah.
Like, I would love to see how they did that behind the scenes, like, made all those sounds, because it just sounds, like top-notch. Can I say bad things yet? Was that enough good things?
Yeah, you can say he's bad. Yeah, you can. 5 good things for every bad. No.
Okay. Yeah, that's the rule, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to go back to Phoenix and the Phoenix Force. You could have gone, I think I said this about Fantastic Four, but you could have gone with like this like otherworldly, or even back to the comics, like you could have gone with like a fiery sound whenever she uses her powers.
Yeah.
And you just get like a hum. It just
Yeah.
And why? Like make the bad guy scary, please. Please, I want to be scared.
Yeah.
And I just wasn't scared.
Kind of build off that, like especially at the end where she's like disintegrating people left and right. Like that sound was, I don't know if underwhelming is right. It was different though. It almost like, only way I could kind of describe it was it almost like crackling leaves more than exploding. Like even like the, Thanos snap sound is more ominous than that. It was like very quiet, and if I want to it depends how I want to look at it, right? I could just say like it's so underwhelming because of the fact that they don't matter. It's like we're not supposed to, she doesn't care. And so it's kind of like, I'm just going to disintegrate these people and it's not a big deal. So no sound.
Yeah. We might get to this later too, but I really hate how this movie's talking about disintegrating people. I hate how the X-Men movies always need a way to contrive that Wolverine has to be the hero. It's like, she can disintegrate people with her mind. I'm the only one that can stop her because I have healing powers. It's like, what? No. She can disintegrate you faster than you can heal. That doesn't make sense.
No, so the movie can happen. Yeah, they do
So
that.
the movie can happen.
Elevate him and what's it? Fridge Charles. Like,
yeah. Well, they do that in Days of Future Past too, where they have to send Wolverine back in time instead of Kitty Pryde. Like the comics,
Yeah.
Kitty Pryde goes back in time, but Hugh Jackman is the big draw, so you got to send him back instead. But whatever.
Yeah.
Another sound I did like was Juggernaut. His like just general thudding, like as he's moving around and breaking stuff. That sounded great. That was perfect. It gives him like a very large presence. Maybe if he's not quite as large as say like the Deadpool Juggernaut, but I think the sound was spot on there.
Yeah, I had that one too. Like there is, I mean, they do some shaky cam with that too, but I think the sound design on him is excellent to really see how heavy that dude is and how unstoppable he is.
Yeah, I think everything else about him was awful, but
Oh, that actor though. We'll get to that.
who is that actor? I should look.
We'll
We'll get to it. We'll get to it.
Yeah, hold on, I got it here somewhere. Where is it? Oh, Vinnie Jones. Yeah.
What else does he do?
Well, I think Snatch was the first thing I've seen him in. He does like a lot of Guy Ritchie stuff. Yeah, he was clearly like in a bodysuit, which is part of why this movie kind of takes me out too. Is like they cast him for his look and for his voice, but like that's not his. I mean, he's a big dude, but it was clearly fake that he was. Yeah, it made him that big in that bodysuit and stuff.
Yeah, and just are we gonna get to writing and dialogue here? Because I think the writing is like the absolute worst part about this show. Or this movie.
Conversely, there's a word for you. Conversely, my favorite part of the film is the score. I think John Powell in this time.
I would agree.
His treatment of the theme is fantastic, and it's a lot more kind of horn heavy, more almost militaristic. A lot of great.
It sounded. You're better at this stuff than me, but at times, and I can't point out how or why, it sounded Superman-y to me. Maybe it was the horns.
Sure.
Especially there's a scene where Angel, he jumps out the window after like denying the cure from his dad.
Yes.
And he like flies away, and I'm like, Superman? It sounded a lot like that.
No, I can hear that. And then one thing that he did that was different, I thought, was there's kind of a leitmotif for the Phoenix, and you hear it in a couple of tracks. There's one called Dark Phoenix's Tragedy, where she destroys her childhood home and kills Charles, and then that later confrontation between Logan when he's like marching up the hill or whatever. And you have this haunting kind of, there's a chorus, and there's like this Middle Eastern vibe to it. And then the instrumentation, which was very different. So I guess that was probably trying to tap into, like, there's this ancient thing happening. That was kind of the vibe that I got off of that.
Yeah, so John Powell, he's got quite the resume.
Yes.
He's worked on a ton of stuff. Nothing like mind-blowingly, but a lot of it pretty good. The Bourne trilogy, How to Train Your Dragon, Happy Feet. I like those movies, I think.
Yeah, the standout for me for him is Solo, because as much as that people hate on that movie, and it's kind of slapped together and reshot kind of like this one, the score for that is so good. Chewbacca's theme, Han Solo's theme is John Williams, but the score for that film is one of the high points for sure.
He does Hancock as well, which also has a really underrated score, I think.
Yep. Yeah, he's very solid.
Yeah, Mr. and Mrs. Smith. He's done he's done quite a bit of stuff. Yeah, so I totally agree. Score is the high point of this film. Unfortunately, like, while it was a good score, I don't feel like it was used effectively, but I don't think that's his fault.
No. Oh, one more that he did too. So he did a ton of DreamWorks. So the How to Train Your Dragon series, that's him too, and that is a great theme. That's fantastic.
It is indeed. I keep nodding my head, forgetting this is an audio podcast. I am agreeing with a lot of what Craig's doing.
Anything else? Jumper. Anything else sound-wise that we want to talk about? All props to John Powell. I mean, he saves this movie.
He did the best he could. I don't know if he saves it.
Well, yeah, he did the best he could.
He keeps it on life support a little longer than, like, we should have just pulled the cord. Like, just turn it off. No, I'm good. That's
Okay.
enough positivity about this.
All right, let's move down to performances then.
I'm ready. Give it to me.
So, well, let's start with the static, dramatic, melodramatic thing, because I think Juggernaut fits on the melodramatic part. But is there anything else performance-wise you want to talk about? Is any standouts, either really, really good or really, really bad?
Okay. Yeah. Oh. Ooh. Okay.
Wide open.
How much time we want here? Let's start with the good. Ian McKellen. That guy kills it.
Yeah,
He
always.
does great. Always. Fantastic. This time, and maybe it's because I just watched Lord of the Rings, but he seemed a little more Gandalf-y than Magneto-y in some scenes.
Yeah.
But again, maybe that's my perception. Yeah, given the material, I think he did really, really well. He was less in this film, and this is probably the writing again, he was more of a warmonger and less of like a strategist.
Yes.
In this one, I feel, which I think was a little off character for him. For example, the line when they first get on the island and like everyone runs at the island and he's like, no, in chess, the pawns go first. Fitting for Magneto. Yes, that guy is all about chess, all about strategy. But one, in chess, the pawns do not go first. That is not like a thing. That's not like a valid strategy. Maybe you might move a pawn, but then you get out your other piece. Nobody lets all the pawns go first. Come on, Magneto. Grow up. And then two, previous iterations of him, he would not like callously throw away mutant life. Like that wasn't who he was.
That's true.
He was like he's not evil. He's not an evil person from his perspective, and letting those mutants die needlessly, I think, is like an evil thing to do. So I didn't really appreciate that. It was a cool line, but it didn't really make sense in context of the character. But most other things he does fantastic. That little speech he gives when he walks in to that little like mutant gathering when they're talking about organizing, and he comes up obviously with the perspective of, I've lived through the Holocaust.
Yes.
And he kind of gives like a rousing speech of nobody is talking about organizing, nobody is talking about extermination. They just do it.
Yeah.
Like yeah, that was a fantastic part. Like he killed it there. What about you? What's some standouts for you?
Yeah, I had that section too, but I want to point out, just to kind of back up what you had said earlier about the kind of inconsistent characterization and what seems like a more consistent, what we've seen so far, portrayal from him and delivery is where he says, somebody's like cheering the fact that Xavier is dead, and he says, Charles Xavier did more for mutants than you'll ever know. My single greatest regret is that he had to die for our dream to live.
Yeah.
Like that's him. Like he's got, he's rationalized what his actions are, but he, like you said, he does not see himself as a villain.
I would have liked to have seen, in general, like from, I guess, all the mutants, but especially Magneto, a little bit more time spent on his, I guess, like acceptance or grief over Charles's death.
Yeah. They're lifelong friends.
Yeah, they're lifelong friends, and this story is definitely about, the two of them and their opposing viewpoints.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say something about the fact that because you have this, you have basically two subplots crammed into the same movie. It feels like it's somehow it's under 2 hours, and yet it also feels rushed. Or it's rushed, but it feels overstuffed at the same time. Like if you would have been able to, say, just focus on the cure thing and just make that the plot of this, and then I think you'd have a little bit more time to just talk about, like, Charles was on one side of this, and although they'd both be on the same side. But because you're moving this thing along so quickly with so many different things, it feels like character moments like that, you lose them. Whereas like in the first, we talked about this when we did the first X-Men movie, that's also under 2 hours, and yet it does not. It gets everything in that it needs to, and it has time for those slow, what feels slow initially, character beats where you really get to know these characters and they're really fleshed out, because you have to introduce all of these characters, which are all essentially equally important. And yeah, that really seems to be the one line of his that shows any kind of remorse that Charles is dead and we've moved on.
I wonder how much pressure was put on the studio, because I do remember, I was 2006, I don't know, 18 or something like that. But I do remember at the time some people complaining about how the first two X-Men movies did not have enough mutants, and like callbacks to the comics. So I wonder if this one, if they felt pressure to like throw in a bunch of characters, but in doing so they couldn't really like allow screen time for the OG characters that we really want to see. But I think a big fix for this movie, if you took out the entire Jean Grey subplot and just made this, or not even a subplot, I guess that is the plot, and just made this about the Cure and then like Xavier versus Magneto and their point of view on that Cure, and then you could even still spend more time focusing on Rogue and like her struggles with getting the Cure, because right now it really just turns into a reason for Rogue to be sad.
Yeah,
that's it, and then they just kind of like sideline her because of it,
big time. And
I'm not a huge fan of like the Rogue character in general throughout this franchise. I think she was like a main plot point in the first one, and then they dropped her off in the second two, and I don't really like that portrayal of Rogue too much. But you could have still used her, like she would have been the perfect shoe-in for. She has a reason for the Cure. You look at other mutants. You look at like Storm. Like, what does she have? She doesn't need to be cured of anything. Like, if she wanted to, she could just not use her powers, and no one would ever know the difference.
Exactly.
But Rogue, like it affects every single relationship she has, and I feel like they should have spent more time on that. And she could have been a good, I guess, plot device for Xavier and Magneto to kind of like fight over, I suppose, if that makes sense.
Yeah, to have her be the one they're fighting over instead of Jean.
Yeah.
To see her go, I'm even thinking, like, not that it's a great movie, but it just reminded me a little bit of the second Fantastic Beasts movie.
Ugh.
But at the end, and it's her name is skipping my brain right now, but the blonde lady who's Jacob's girlfriend, she goes with you're right. She goes with Grindelwald because he is answering the question that she has about being able to.
It could have been very similar to Mystique in First Class, like how Mystique was originally an X-Men, and she ends up going over. That would have been like some good. I mean, obviously this came out before First Class, but that would have been like some good echoes from First Class if First Class could like mimic this, and then maybe you could like draw into Xavier's emotions of, oh, he already felt this with Mystique. Oh, he already lost Mystique. He doesn't want to lose Rogue.
Yeah.
Again, they came out after each other, so that doesn't really work, but it would have been cool.
No, I hear what you're saying. It's another. I think of like Spider-Man 3, which we'll get to, and it's overstuffed because they want so much. The studio wants so much stuff in there. Where the movie we're describing, where it's more cerebral and about the Cure and who's making those choices, sounds fascinating to me. But I don't know if that's not your summer tentpole movie. Right, you want an action movie, and that's just not going to be full of that. That's going to be a drama.
The Cure and Jean's Phoenix Force, the two main plots in here, do not intersect whatsoever.
No,
like there's no temptation to use the Cure on Jean or anything like that.
That doesn't even get brought up.
Yeah, why didn't Logan like stab her with the Cure instead of his claws? I'm just now considering that could have.
Nope.
That could have tied those two plots together, and she could have lived.
Dang.
It's not like they didn't think of it. They did it to Magneto. Why didn't he stab Magneto and then cure Jean Grey? What the heck?
And all of the.
Why does Magneto get to live?
So much.
Dumb.
I will say, okay, the one thing positive I'll say about that, and then we'll talk about some other things, is that we do get that the Wolverine is better because of that, though. That he's haunted by the fact that he killed her, and you do have that kind of ghostly haunting his dreams thing. That's cool that they do tie that in. But yes, Justin, that's a freaking good point. Why didn't they just give her the Cure? That would have been so bad.
But I mean, you're right. The Wolverine is better. I like that movie did not do well, but I like that movie. It's well done.
Me too.
But we're not talking about that movie.
No.
That movie could have figured something else out. Like, this movie didn't have to suck, so that movie could be good. No.
No.
Hang on, I got more to say about characters. Speaking of like betraying characters, so Charles Xavier, Patrick Stewart, first two movies, that guy is a mentor figure. He's a father figure. He is caring for these mutants. He cares about Logan, even all of Logan's like stupid downfalls and vices. The professor is willing to work with that. Mm-hmm. But in this one, I was fully expecting, every time I watch this movie, I'm fully expecting to like find out that the professor is mind controlled or like, somehow taken over by some alien entity, because he is a jerk. Like he is.
I don't have to explain myself to you.
Rude.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have to explain myself to you, or like I warned you this would happen. Stuff like that. Like that is not Professor X. That is a huge departure from his other character, and he dies on like such a negative note. Like he was pretty mean to his X-Men, and we find out that he doesn't even have very good. Like he doesn't explain himself very well for the moral dilemma of like locking the Phoenix Force inside Jean as a child. He just kind of comes off as like a controlling, manipulative leader instead of I was doing this for your own good. And I know he says that I was doing it for your own good, but they don't explore that at all. So at the end, you're just like, this guy's kind of a douchebag. Like,
yeah, I mean they do. Yeah, and see that's one thing where Dark Phoenix does that better.
Yes,
because it's like I'm saving you from the fact that you killed your parents, which that's kind of the conceit, right? That I'm protecting you from that. So doing that in a way would have been. See, you get Kimber.
Yeah, but this one he's just cranky and mean and dismissive of people.
Maybe that's why he smiles when he dies. He's just like, yeah, it's finally over. Not really. No, I don't know. It's weird.
No, I don't like it.
No, I know. I'm just like, why is he smiling? But he's not fully dead, which we'll talk about. I was going to mention this earlier, that we have the danger room in this film, so we get to see the fastball special a couple of different times, which is fun. And I was going to say this earlier, but it's good enough. It's fine to say now. We don't actually get to see the Sentinel, but I think they do it in a really interesting way, where like they show like that extreme high angle rather, looking down. We see from the like Sentinel's point of view, looking down at them, and then we just see the lights of the eyes. It's hidden really well, which I thought was in a movie that's really expensive, because at the time this was the most expensive movie ever made. And
what?
Yes, and the highest grossing X-Men film at the time.
That can't be true.
At the time, it was. But they they saved some money by not showing the Sentinels.
But they did it in a way that it ended up still looking pretty good.
It didn't feel cheap. It was more ominous because I couldn't see them. One thing I do have to mention that I really do like about this film, and I'll talk about it a little bit. Well, now it's as good a time as any. I love Beast in this. I love everything about Beast in this. I think Kelsey Grammer is a fantastic cast for this, especially, his most famous persona is Frasier on TV. I think the costume is great. I like his action scenes. I love the fact that he says stars and garters. His catchphrase, like it just that, if nothing else, this movie gave us a really, really good Beast.
No, yeah, that's true. Wasn't there some drama about Beast being in the MCU and Kelsey Grammer was upset that it wasn't him?
Well, didn't he do the voice? I know it was CGI, but I thought he did the voice.
Yeah, but I thought he did the voice because I could be making this up, so somebody fact check me. I thought he did the voice because he like threatened to sue or something because he was. I don't know how that lawsuit
I didn't really
worked.
pay attention to the Marvel
I need to Google this.
Yeah, I didn't actually see that film.
No, yeah, he did do a fantastic job. So much so that I love the First Class franchise. I think it's really good, but I do not like the Beast iteration in that.
I don't like it.
Especially his constant, like, I can go back and forth between being blue and not blue. Like, that's not your thing.
Yeah, you don't wolf out. You're not Teen Wolf.
No.
We gave them a lot of flack for the digital de-aging, but on the other side, like Jean's when she goes full Phoenix, that's digital makeup too, and that I think is done
pretty cool,
really well. Like you can kind of see the veins under the skin because she's like just barely contained rage. I thought that was excellent.
Yeah, that looks cool. They made her eyes all black, which looked really cool too.
She looks like she's just gonna burst. I thought that was effective. Anything else on that before we talk about setting and design and stuff?
I'm sure a lot of other things will come up.
Yeah. So filmed in Canada a lot. Filmed Vancouver Film Studios, same place as X2. Hatley Park National Historic Site. The Royal Roads University again stands in for the expansion. I mentioned we finally get the Danger Room, which I know is something they've been trying to get in for the first two movies, and they finally give it to us, which I thought was, again, that's another really great part of this. I mean, it's, Star Trek steals it and it's a holodeck. Basically felt the same as that. But it's cool to finally see that. But the one thing
that was a fun opening sequence too, and like a good way to introduce a couple new characters right off the bat. That was well done.
So I had a question for you because it occurred to me, why do you think that the Brotherhood's meeting place is in the woods? Because I had a
seeing
thought
as
about
how their
that.
leader is Magneto, that would be A weird place to meet. I mean, other than just like anonymity and just being away. That's a good question.
I'm totally putting you on the spot now because I had some time to think about this, but
I mean,
I have a theory.
Like in movie or like for the movie, like
in story reason.
In story reason,
like
okay.
Symbolic
out of
reason.
story reason, I'd probably say like to give it the muted colors and kind of like a more calming experience to maybe like let you connect with Magneto's plot a little bit more. But in universe reason, I got nothing. Tell me.
So I said because it's nature versus technology. Because it's the mutants, their natural state, fighting against being controlled by man's technology.
Okay.
So that's why they would be more comfortable there. Also, it's in the middle of nowhere, so strategically it kind of makes sense. But it's like it also just kind of struck me. This is kind of weird. Like there's no buildings out there or nothing. Like where are those guys hanging out? But that's kind of where I was like,
they do that?
Back to nature type of thing. Because they are talking about the
I don't know though.
Also.
If I was Magneto, I just feel like I'd want to surround myself with like steel girders and stuff.
Yeah, like his cool lair in the first movie.
Yeah, like his cool. Yeah, why didn't he just make a cool lair like in this first movie?
Don't know. But that's my theory.
That was a cool lair.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I wanted to catalog as much as I could what was going on in Jimmy's white room full of early 2000s toys, but it was super fast. Like, what video game system was he playing? Did you catch that? Was it a GameCube?
I didn't. No.
There was a lot of stuff in there that was like...
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we had a Square TV already, which already dated this movie, but that was kind of fun to see. Some remote control stuff.
No, I didn't pick up on any of that stuff. Dang it, now I feel like I need to go back and watch that because there probably was some good stuff in there.
Yeah, I'm sure somebody's cataloged that somewhere.
Yeah.
I liked... I love that there's a brochure for Xavier's school.
Yeah, of course there is.
Of course there is. Sure. Sign up for mutant school. Like, you'd think that'd be more secret, but it's not. It's kind of like it's open secret, which is pretty fun.
Yeah, they're never like quite clear. I feel like in this franchise they kind of go back and forth on like how well known that school is, because obviously the government knows about it. Like it's a known thing in X-Men 2. Stryker's like showing images to the president and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But nobody seems to care after that.
It's a plane underneath the basketball court. What else did I want? Oh, I did want to talk earlier about in performance that what is the name? Let me look up the name of the actor. Caden Boyd is the one that plays young Angel. That scene where he is in the bathroom trying to cut off his wings. I was going to talk about the tools here. That's why it just completely heartbreaking that little boy is just so desperate that he feels like he has to mutilate himself. Just that shots of that, all the things that he's trying. Just it's brutal. Like there are some things that are powerful in this film.
Yeah, that scene actually sticks with me quite a bit. Like even as an adult, I think of that scene a lot because that kid does a really good job of like showing the emotional pain and the emotional hurt. Like he hates that so much that he's willing to like mutilate himself to try and get rid of it. And then like the look of disappointment on his dad's face, like that whole thing is just really, really well done. I wish it would have paid off more. Yeah. Because they didn't really do anything with that character afterwards. No.
Again, if you just stick with this, that's another thing you do. You stick with the Cure storyline. Maybe you just keep Jean out of this until the fourth movie, and then your two people you're really concerned with are Angel and what did we say earlier with Rogue?
Rogue. Yeah.
And give them, put them to the forefront and talk about their different experiences like that. I think would have been fascinating. And because Angel is shortchanged something fierce in this movie.
Yeah, I mean, I always thought he was kind of lame in the comics. He doesn't really so in the comic. Well, I guess we see this in the movie too. He ends up turning into Archangel, like Apocalypse's little pet, and he's a lot cooler. But just in the comics, he's a guy with wings and like exceptionally light bones, so he can fly. Like that's not.
Yeah, but he's one of the first X-Men, though, isn't he?
He's like an OG. But like, what are you gonna do with that power? He's just gonna gonna fly around.
It looks cool, but for him to be an OG X-Men and then to just barely be in this, had I been a hardcore X-Men fan, I'd been like, oh, cool. And why is he barely in this movie?
You could have even had like Angel be a pretty good foil against Rogue, and you could have had some like really interesting dialogue between the two of them and like their different experiences growing up as mutants and maybe why Rogue wants to head off with Magneto and why Angel's going to stick with Xavier. I don't know. Like you could have had a lot of like exploration of like political ramifications, like moral ramifications of deciding to change who you fundamentally are. You know, stuff like that. Like you could have been good. It could have been good, Craig. There's a foundation of good things. But just like the Golden Gate Bridge, it was ripped up and taken from us.
Ooh. Nice metaphor.
Thank you.
All right. I'm moving to see. Looking down at characters and see if there's anybody we didn't talk about. Quick question for you, though. Mystique? Does Mystique know that that's a decoy? Or does she actually...
What's a decoy?
Okay, so... Because she gives up the location of the hidden base, right? And then it's just multiple man the whole time? And the president's all like, hell hath no fury like a woman scorned. And then immediately like it backfires because it didn't work. Do you think she knew that was part of the plan?
I don't know, because I feel like if she knew, they would have hinted that she knew, or like they would have like called back to it.
Yeah.
Somehow, because I mean that's her whole thing, right? Like going deep undercover. Yeah. And then causing chaos from the inside. But in this case, she's like legitimately probably pretty upset at Magneto for ditching her. Yeah. Cold-heartedly, which I think is pretty on brand for Magneto. Like at that point, that is very Magneto of him. Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know. I don't think she knew that it was a decoy.
Yeah. The more I watch it, I don't think that she knew. I think
they never hinted at it.
Yeah. That's even more of a betrayal that now she looks like an idiot.
Yeah. Yeah. Still on characters. Halle Berry, I feel like they have her in all three of these movies, and all three times she's like a big ball of nothing. Yeah. Like there's not a lot of exploration of her character in any of these. Oh, I guess a little bit in X-Men 2 and some of her interactions with Nightcrawler. Where's Nightcrawler?
The makeup was too expensive. I know, I miss him. I mean, that was one of the things I heard. Yeah. I mean, they do make Storm like the headmistress of the school at the end, which is probably like throwing Halle Berry a bone. Like, hey, look how important you are. But this movie is so full of people, and then you added more people. Like, and I get hey, we want to see this mutant, we want to see this mutant, we want to see this mutant, but there's so many stinking characters. Like, how do you balance that? Especially when you're gonna
don't have so many characters.
Just don't do it.
Just stop.
Yeah. I mean, we get a nice arc, I think, for Bobby Drake. I think that's kind of, and it's small, it's abbreviated, but gonna see him come into his own. I like that. I really do like that fight he has with Pyro at the end, where he goes full Iceman and headbutts him. That's pretty cool. Mm-hmm. Gets a little bit of a goosebumps walk away there.
Well, and it was a cool line too. Like, you should have stayed in school. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You should have never left.
That line. There we go. Yeah.
Goosebumps.
So, Iceman with Shadowcat. What's her face?
Kitty Pryde.
I said her name earlier. Kitty Pryde.
Yeah.
Do you think he was actually crushing on her? Like, was Rogue right to be jealous?
I mean,
or was he just being friendly?
You took her ice skating, dude. I mean, you had to know. Come on.
Yeah, that just doesn't seem in character for him.
No,
like he was loyal to Rogue, right?
He absolutely was. So I think she was absolutely. Well, I mean, I guess he comes off really bad. It's more motivation for Rogue to leave and, get the cure, which apparently she does. Has that conversation with Logan, like, don't do this for a boy or whatever. It's absolutely, she's kind of doing that to prove him wrong or whatever. It's messy.
Because, I just don't think that's in character for him, but also you'd have to be a complete idiot not to know that, like, taking a girl ice skating and like making an ice skating rink for her, and she knew what she was doing when she's like, "Oh, I just miss the snow so much." Yeah, and she's like, "You're talking to freaking Iceman, dummy. You know what you're doing, you home wrecker."
I love. He's like, "Oh, no one's gonna know. We're not gonna get in trouble." Like, you just made a frozen ice rink. Who else did that? It was you, man.
Outside of a bunch of windows, like of
in
kids'
full
bedrooms,
view of everybody, including your girlfriend.
Full view, and like that's your girlfriend's window right there. You dummy. You dummy.
Damn. So dumb. Yeah. Okay. Daniel Cudmore is Colossus. We get a little bit more of him. I was going to mention this earlier. I love the scene where he's walking through the hallway holding the TV like it's nothing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just a great little character beat. How massive that dude
I
is.
love that. I love Colossus as a character. Like every iteration I've seen of him has just been fantastic. Most definitely though in the Deadpool films, he is so good in those films. He's just like the perfect counter to Deadpool. It's genius, and this movie did him justice too. But yeah, good stuff.
I think, let's see, Eric Dane as Multiple Man is barely in this movie, but he's great. He has like 2 lines.
Yep, does a good job.
Yeah.
Yeah, no issues there.
Yeah. Just so many characters. And again, we get, I think we talked a little bit about this with The Punisher, but you have both Ben Foster and, what's her name, Rebecca Romijn in this that are both in The Punisher, and so that kind of messes up continuity. But again, X-Men doesn't care about continuity. If this was all, same universe, I mean.
Oh, yeah. I mean, X-Men doesn't even care about continuity with even within its own universe, so who the heck cares?
Yeah.
We had the guy, I forget his name, I was trying to look for his name, the guy that like can shoot spikes out.
Yeah.
Or like have spike, the Asian fellow.
Ken Leung, who's in Lost.
Yeah, like his whole power is like, I have to hug you to kill you. What's up with what?
Yeah.
Like, they never even show him like shooting spikes or anything. He can just protrude them from his skin. How useful? That's not useful.
No, he's memorable though. I do like that guy, but
But you're like a glorified porcupine.
That's what he is. He has porcupine powers. I like him on Lost though. Miles is pretty great.
He's good on Lost. He has a good character on Lost, but this is not Lost.
No, it's not.
Similarly disappointing though. Similar feelings.
I love Lost all the way through.
Nah,
that's me. Hero's journey. I just had that this is just the final part of Logan's journey to becoming a full-fledged member of the X-Men.
Yeah.
Although when they next meet him in The Wolverine, he's left because bad stuff has happened. But I guess that's not his fault.
Yeah, it just.
Because
I need someone to sit down and make sense of the X-Men franchise. I've watched so many YouTube videos trying to explain the timeline and like cramming it together and forcing it to fit. I'm just like, it's not going to fit, man. Stop trying.
No,
it doesn't work.
It doesn't fit. Yeah, well. So as far as world building goes, one thing that I thought they did well, and because we've talked a lot about what does this fit into the existing universe, the pre-MCU as we've been calling it. I think it's still self-contained to a large degree because it is all about the mutant cure. Like, I don't know if Spider-Man would get involved in that, and Blade wouldn't give it 2 craps. And I don't know. Would the Fantastic Four speak up? What like? Does it fit?
I don't know if it fit. You know what? I'm gonna retract something I said on a previous episode.
Yeah.
So previous episode, I mentioned how I don't feel like X-Men fits in the Marvel universe at all, because is what I had said on the previous episode was that there's a fair amount of like xenophobia, racism.
Yeah.
I don't know what you'd call it in terms of mutants. With the mutants, like people are really mad. Like, oh, that guy has powers and abilities. We hate him. But Spider-Man we're totally cool with. Like, it's only if you're born with it.
Right. But we don't even know.
Spider-Man's a bad example.
Yeah, but we don't even know Spider-Man's origin. Like, public doesn't know his origin. They just know he's a dude with
That's
Spider-Man.
true. Okay, public doesn't super like Spider-Man, but that's mostly J. Jonah Jameson. So that's like Fantastic Four. They love Fantastic Four.
Absolutely.
Don't love mutants. And before I was like, that doesn't really fit. Like, they should be in a separate universe. But now I'm more thinking that it kind of does fit, because it's showing like the illogicalness of the. What would it be? Would it be xenophobia or racism? I'm not sure.
I think either works. Probably. I mean, xenophobia is more generalized, so.
Yeah, so like it shows the illogicalness of that. Like, there is no distinction between these two people except for how they obtain their powers. Therefore, people's hatred of them is stupid.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they are just as dangerous as. Like Magneto could be just as dangerous as Doctor Doom. It doesn't really matter how Magneto got his powers. It doesn't matter how Doctor Doom got his powers. The public should be equally afraid of him. But in this universe, they are not, which I think works, because it's all illogical, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that being said, I do think it fits in the universe. I think you do a couple of really crazy things, like, say, rip up the Golden Gate Bridge. That's kind of a big one. That if it was in universe, would probably be mentioned elsewhere. Again, we're trying to shoehorn this. We're fully aware it does not fit.
No.
And then the other thing is we have the mutant cure, but that's never mentioned again ever in any X-Men films. Right? I feel like that would be a pretty universal changing.
Yeah, I mean the next one chronologically in the timeline would be the Wolverine, and no, it's not mentioned there.
I mean,
by the
that
time you
one
get to
I guess
Days of
takes
Future
place on the other side of the world.
Yeah, Days of Future Past, like that's kind of an extension of that because we have the whole thing with the Sentinels and whatever that it is trying to get rid of mutants. Mutants have become illegal at that point. So, but no, I don't think the cure itself.
But at no point do the Sentinels have any like mutant ending gene or cure. You know, they just kind of
the cure is death.
Take out the mutants.
Yeah, it's an extermination thing. Yeah.
I don't know, maybe some bridge of like, oh, we used the cure to be able to program Sentinels to identify the gene. I don't know. They just kind of dropped that plot thread.
Yeah. Yeah, they used the mystique of it all to take care of it. Yeah. Well, I mean, just to kind of move down to final thoughts, like, it definitely feels like it was meant to be the last X-Men movie, but it also kind of goes out like in a whimper. Like, it's very sad that this would be the last one because X2 was so good and was really set up in a really good place, and then this just doesn't follow through, as a lot of third movies just don't. For whatever reason.
Okay, so, like, we're going to get to Spider-Man 3. Spider-Man 3 doesn't follow through. It's not as good as the first two, but at least it keeps a lot of the themes and characters consistent.
Yes.
Right? It keeps the world consistent. It is overstuffed, but this one, not consistent. It's just, it's like a different, it doesn't fit at all, and it's just frustrating.
Yeah, this is a thing where we have Bryan Singer departs, and I think had we had a Bryan Singer directed to X3, then we would have gotten a true end of a trilogy. Whereas this definitely feels like it's compromised in a lot of ways.
Agreed.
I mean, we did mention, I kind of mentioned or alluded to earlier that this one has a post-credit scene. Like, I thought it was the first one, but it's not. Blade Trinity had the first one, but this is the first one of note where we see that Charles is not actually dead. And I didn't see this in the theater. I didn't see it until I must have accidentally left the DVD player running because I didn't know that was the thing I was supposed to wait for. But it's really significant.
You didn't see it till you were nearly a man.
Exactly. I mean, it's a hugely important thing that he's not dead, and because he's going to show up in the Wolverine because of this.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
He shows up in the Wolverine?
Yeah. There's a mid or post-credit scene in the Wolverine where he and Magneto show up. Yeah.
What? Okay. Sorry, listeners. I need to go watch that. I do not remember that.
Yeah, it has some stuff with Trask and stuff, and it sets up the Sentinel thing. It very much is a precursor to Days of Future Past. Yeah, check that out.
All right, we need to end this episode because I need to watch that. I've never seen that in my life.
Yeah, go watch it. But we'll go watch a much better X-Men movie. That's also the next one in order of this. Let's see. Did I have anything else? You have any other final thoughts on this film, though, Justin?
Extreme disappointment, and it gets worse every time I watch, and it makes me sad, and I hate everything.
Wow, let's see how well we do with the next film. Because we're getting into the dregs. I mean, I do like Fantastic Four, Rise of the Silver Surfer, and Spider-Man 3 is.
I think that's a better movie.
Yeah, we're kind of petering out here as we get to the end. So as we're going to go ahead and wrap.
This is probably the lowest, though, right? I don't think it gets lower. Like Spider-Man 3 has aged well. The other X-Men movies are solid.
I think this is the nadir,
this is probably the lowest.
The lowest part. So we just want to thank you guys so much for listening to us ramble. If you'd like to connect with us, you can find us on X, Instagram, Facebook. Email us at readingbetweenreels@gmail.com or use the SpeakPipe app on our website. If you enjoyed the show, please like, follow, or subscribe and review us on iTunes or Spotify. And as we kind of alluded to, our next film, we'll see if it's better than this one, will be Ghost Rider, starring Nicolas Cage. Send us an email or voicemail about your favorite moments from Ghost Rider. We'll share it.
I changed my mind. That's the low point.
Ghost Rider's next, guys. It's coming next. Thanks so much for listening. We'll talk to you later. Bye.